meeting, please. I'd like to thank you all very much for coming in today because I don't like calling special meetings unless it's really, really urgent. But in order to discuss giving an award to Craig, we had to do this because his diary is jam-packed full of appointments now. Don't know what they are, but they're taking them all over the place. So that is why we had to do it now, so that we could arrange to have his presentation at a time that suited him before he goes out of the country again. So I want to thank you all very much for coming along and for Ian for seconding the motion. Now, as you are all aware, the freedom of Renfrewshire is not an honour that we bestow lightly. It is the highest civic honour that this council can give to an individual or an organisation, and it recognises people whose achievements have brought distinction to Renfrewshire and whose contribution has made a lasting difference to their community. And I hope that we're all going to agree today that Craig has earned that distinction. He is a young man from Paisley who has achieved something really extraordinary. He, well, not only because of the physical challenges that he took on, but because of the purpose behind them. And you'll probably all know that last year Craig walked over 1,000 miles from Glasgow to Munich, and he raised then more than £77,000 for Brothers in Arms. And he shone a much needed spotlight on men's mental health, and that achievement earned him the Provost Award for Outstanding Achievements at the 2025 Community Awards. But he wasn't finished there, and this year he set himself an almost unimaginable challenge, walking more than 3,000 miles across the US from LA to Boston, completing the equivalent of a marathon every day while wearing a kilt in that heat, doing it all to raise money and awareness for SAMH, which is the Scottish Action for Mental Health. And he walked for 108 days, covering, as I said, about 3,300 miles. And incredibly, he managed to raise more than £1 million. And I think the figure is sitting at somewhere like 1,300,000, something like that at the moment. So this is raised by one young man who decided that he wanted to make a difference. But for me, I think Craig's story was much more about the money. It was about the conversations that he started by doing this. It's about the people that he's encouraged to speak openly about mental health. And of course, he carried Paisley and Renfrewshire with him every step of the way. And I think there's something particularly special about all of that. And Craig never undertook the challenges only for himself, which he could have done. He could have sought that adventure and travel for personal achievement, but he didn't. He chose to use his own determination and resilience to help other people. And I think that says an enormous amount about the young man that he is. And as Provost, I have the privilege of meeting so many remarkable people around Renfrewshire. And I've often said that one of the greatest strengths of our communities is the people who live here, the ordinary people who do extraordinary things. And Craig, I think, is a perfect example of that Renfrewshire spirit. Now, I think it's also important that we recognise the way Craig has represented Paisley and Renfrewshire on the international stage. He's travelled thousands of miles, met people from different countries, different communities, and carried our Scottish identity with him, quite literally in his kilt, which of course you all know that he lost. Don't think he's got it back yet. But wherever he went, he talked about where he came from, and I don't think we could have asked for a better ambassador for our community. He is, and he always will be, proud to be a Paisley boy. And I know there are many people across Paisley and Renfrewshire who have followed his journeys, cheered him on. I think we've got some bordering on stalkers here in this room for his Instagram page and his TikTok accounts, me included. But they've cheered him on, we've donated to his causes, and felt an enormous sense of pride watching him achieve all of that, when at times I'm sure it must have felt impossible for him. So today I'm asking colleagues to give Craig something that goes beyond recognising a single achievement. I'm asking us to recognise the values behind those achievements. So colleagues, I hope you will join me in supporting this motion and awarding Craig Ferguson the Freedom of Renfrewshire. He has made us proud. He has raised an extraordinary amount of money for mental health. He's encouraged conversations that saved lives. And somehow along the way, he's taken not just thousands, but millions of people with him. So I just want to say today, officially and collectively, Craig Ferguson, You're one of our own, and Renfrewshire is proud to call you a Freeman of our county. Now, Craig really wanted to be here this morning, but plans changed and he's having to head up to Orkney. I think at 12:30 his flight was. So I'm pretty sure he'll be watching this at some point as soon as it goes live. So thank you everyone for coming in here again, and I want to invite Ian to second the motion.
Thanks, Provis. You phoned me a few weeks ago and I missed your call, and when I see your name coming up, it always strikes fear. I think either I've done something wrong or somebody in the Labour group's done something wrong, but when I did eventually get to speak to you, you obviously told me why you phoned, and I was relieved. And obviously I didn't even have to think about it. It was a no-brainer, as they say, to support the motion you've put up in support of Craig and the work that he's done. Now, there's a football song that's sung by many supporters of various clubs and countries. I would walk a million miles for one of your goals. Now, Craig didn't quite manage the million miles, but it's as well been a million miles, 3,000 miles. It's absolutely incredible. You know, most of us probably go out for a wee walk for 2 or 3 miles and say, "Oh, that's really, I feel really good about doing that." But 3,000 miles is quite quite a feat. It really, really is. And for me, it was probably the highlight of the World Cup. Let's be honest, watching Scotland was absolutely miserable. But what Craig achieved certainly was the highlight, along with the behaviour of the fans, particularly in Boston, and the reception they received. And Craig was very much part of that. When he arrived in Boston, the amount of fans and local people that they were waiting to see him and kind of mark his achievement. And I was lucky enough to meet Craig at the Provost Awards over a year ago, and he's such a nice chap, quite a humble chap. And you're right, Provost, and he doesn't hide the fact that he's from Paisley. He doesn't hide the fact that he's from Renfrewshire. Obviously, he talks a lot about Scotland and he's representing Scotland, but fundamentally he's representing us here in Renfrewshire. But obviously there's a serious side to it as well, and why he's doing all this, and it's to raise mental health and mental health issues amongst people. And we all know the poor record we have of mental health in here, which leads to drug addiction, alcohol addiction, breakup of families, and in really the worst case scenarios, the suicides. We speak about that, you know, in a number of the boards and committees that were here, and it's all rather sad. So what Craig has done is has raised the issue, and if he saves one life, job done. And we know particularly it's a focus in men's mental health, and many of us around here know of people who have unfortunately taken their lives because of poor mental health. So what he's achieved in raising that awareness amongst the community is absolutely tremendous. So I'm delighted and honoured for you to ask me on behalf of the Labour group to second this motion. And if there's anybody that deserves to be the free person of get the freedom of Renfrewshire, it's definitely Craig. So well done, and thanks for all he's done for us here in Renfrewshire. I have no idea what he's going to do next. I'm sure there'll be something at the back of his mind. How he can top walking across the US, I have no idea, but I'm sure he'll come up with something special in the years to come. So thanks again for all your work. I just finally would like to say, although probably Craig would say this himself, I'm sure he had a support team out there who are probably the unsung heroes. We're talking a lot about Craig today, and quite rightly so, but I'm sure he didn't just pick up his backpack and just wander about across America. I'm sure he had a huge support team there. They're probably the unsung heroes as well, so I think they probably deserve a mention as well. But well done, Craig, and thanks for everything you've done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. And he had one friend in particular, Matthew, who played a big part in what Craig done. And I am considering just now some way of also recognising Matthew's role in that feat. I think Matthew he's the shy guy, stays away from the camera whenever possible. But I think he did all the driving and a lot of the feeding, making sure Craig was well fed and things like that. Caroline Davidson, Councillor Davidson.
Thanks, Provost. I wanted to come in here as I've known the family for over 20 years. Craig's mum, Joan, is a good friend of mine. Joan herself's always been ambitious and pushed beyond boundaries and barriers to achieve everything that she has, and she also encouraged others, including myself, to do the same. I believe that's where Craig got his intrepid nature to take on these unbelievable challenges. Joan is rightly immensely proud of both her boys, Callum and Craig, and what Craig has achieved is totally amazing and inspiring to others. And the funds and awareness that he raised is just unbelievable. So I just wanted to say well done to Craig and congratulations to Joan for raising such a fine young man.
Thank you, Councillor Davidson. Councillor Hughes?
Thanks, Provost. I agree with everything everyone said, and I absolutely agree with Caroline about Joan, and I think Craig would say the same thing. For those who don't know, Joan works for both the council and One Men, and she works in roles where she supports people every day to make their lives better. And I think Craig would probably like that to be notified. And I've said before that he comes from a family of people who believe in supporting their communities and doing good things, and I think that shows. I think the councillors have already spoken about what Craig has done, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the fact about the things he's continued to do, because we are recognising the work that he's done, but he's taken the profile that he's got from that to continue to do work, to do these things. He's doing, you know, fireside chats in places where people can go and hear about the journey, so that you're hearing more about mental health. Just on Saturday, he started the Paisley 10K, also ran it in less than 50 minutes, having just walked across America, which I think is quite good. And it's about, he's very selfless. It's just about how can I use this to continue to promote these things. And I just wanted to recognise that because the journey continues for Craig, and I look forward to following it.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Okay, we have no more hands up, so if that's everyone contributed, then can I just ask you all to agree the motion? Agreed, and thank you so much for attending this morning. Well done, Craig. Okay.